A NASA spokesperson had to put it in an email this year. The Earth will not lose gravity on August 12, 2026. That sentence exists because a fabricated document called Project Anchor, $89 billion, 7.3 seconds of weightlessness, 40 million dead, has been circulating since January with hundreds of thousands of shares behind it. It is fiction, and its own timestamp does not match the eclipse it was built on. But the date it stole is real, and it is the first of its kind in 5,000 years of calculation. This is the story of both. It begins with a man sitting in a parked car, saying nothing. The video was posted on the 31st of December 2025. There is no narration, there is only text laid over the footage, and the text reads, "On August 12th, 2026, the world will lose gravity for 7 seconds. NASA knows. They are preparing, but they will not tell us why." Underneath it sat a caption with the specificity that makes a lie travel. A leaked NASA document titled Project Anchor, surfacing in November of 2024. A budget of $89 billion. A gravitational anomaly lasting 7.3 seconds, beginning at 1433 Universal Time. Between 40 and 60 million dead. Underground bunkers for selected citizens with genetic diversity. An independent physicist who confirmed the finding, whose paper was retracted and who has since disappeared. 62,000 likes. 268,000 shares on one platform alone. By the 6th or 7th of January, the account that posted it had vanished, and the claim had outrun its own author across TikTok, Facebook, Threads, Reddit, and message boards that no longer remember where they got it. Tomorrow is the 12th of August, and the reason this is worth 20 minutes of your life is not that the claim is false. You already suspect that. It is that Earth's gravity is not the fixed, unchanging number you were taught it was. And the truth about how much it moves, and when, and why, is stranger than the fiction built on top of it. Snopes contacted NASA directly. The agency replied by email, and the statement is worth quoting in full, because it does something rare in a debunk. It explains the physics instead of simply denying the claim. The Earth will not lose gravity on August 12, 2026. Earth's gravity, or total gravitational force, is determined by its mass. The only way for the Earth to lose gravity would be for the Earth system, the combined mass of its core, mantle, crust, ocean, terrestrial water, and atmosphere to lose mass. A total solar eclipse has no unusual impact on Earth's gravity. The gravitational attraction of the Sun and Moon on the Earth, which doesn't impact Earth's total gravity but does impact tidal forces, is well understood and is predictable decades in advance. Notice what that rules out. Not the number, not the date, the mechanism. Gravity is what mass does. It is not a process running somewhere inside the Earth that could be interrupted, suspended, or switched off by an external event. It is a property of the material itself, of 6 sextillion tons of iron and silicate rock and salt water sitting in one place. Dr. Alfredo Carpinetti, the space and physics editor at IFL Science, who holds a doctorate in astrophysics from Imperial College London, put the same point more bluntly. To take away Earth's gravity, you would need to take away the core, then the mantle, then the crust. At which point you no longer have a planet. There is nothing left to stand on and no one left to float. Here is where the story turns from wrong to careless. The claim is precise about its timing. 1433 Universal Time on the 12th of August. That precision is doing rhetorical work. It sounds copied out of a document rather than invented in an evening. So compare it to the event the date was borrowed from. NASA has computed the circumstances of every solar eclipse from 1999, before the Common Era, through the year 3000. 11,898 of them, of which 3,173 are total. The timings are published to 1/10 of a second, centuries out. For tomorrow's total solar eclipse, the Moon's outer shadow first touches Earth at 15:35 and 24 seconds Universal Time. Greatest eclipse, the instant the shadow's axis passes closest to Earth's centre, falls at 17:47 and 6 seconds. The last of the shadow leaves the planet at 19:59 and 9 seconds. At 14:33, Universal Time, when the world is supposed to let go of everything standing on it, the Moon's shadow has not yet reached the Earth. The eclipse has not begun. Not in Siberia, not in Greenland, not anywhere. The anomaly is scheduled more than 3 hours before the moment it was supposedly caused by. Whoever wrote it took a real date and never checked the clock underneath it. The claim also describes what the 7 seconds would feel like, second by second. And this is the part that gets shared most often because it is cinematic. 1 to 2 seconds, everything not secured begins to rise. People, vehicles, animals. 3 to 4 seconds, objects reach 15 to 20 meters. Call it the height of a 5-story building. 5 to 6 seconds, panic as people strike ceilings. 7.3 seconds, gravity returns and everything comes down at once. Now hold that against the first law of motion, which NASA teaches to school children. A body at rest remains at rest unless acted upon by an outside force. Remove gravity and nothing lifts you. Gravity is the thing pressing you into the floor. Take it away, and you are simply no longer pressed. The floor's answering push stops in the same instant. You would drift gently at whatever speed you happen to already have, which for most people, most of the time, is 0. You do not launch 60 feet into the air. You hover an inch off a chair and feel extremely strange. There is a working demonstration in orbit right now. The astronauts aboard the International Space Station are not floating because gravity has stopped. At 400 kilometers up, Earth's pull is still roughly 90% of what it is at sea level. They float because they are falling forward fast enough that they keep missing the planet. Weightlessness is not the absence of gravity. It is the experience of surrendering to it completely. The story gets the direction of the physics backwards, and it gets it backwards in the most photogenic way available. None of this is new. That is the part worth sitting with. On the 1st of April, 1976, the astronomer Patrick Moore went on BBC Radio 2 and told the country that at 9:47 that morning, Pluto would pass behind Jupiter. The two planets' gravity would briefly combine, he said, into something he called the Jovian-Plutonian gravitational effect, and the result would be a measurable decrease in gravity here on Earth. Anyone who jumped at that exact moment would feel themselves float. Soon after 9:47, the BBC switchboard lit up. Hundreds called in to report they had felt it. The joke inside the joke was that Moore had swapped the grand planetary alignment everyone was expecting in 1982 for a conjunction involving Pluto. An object so small, its contribution to anything is essentially nothing. He said an absurdity in a calm voice, and people felt it in their bodies. In January of 2015, the same claim came back as Zero Gravity Day, again involving Jupiter and Pluto, again falsely attributed to NASA and sometimes to Moore himself. Space.com debunked it. It resurfaces most years. The 2026 version is that same claim with a fabricated document, a fabricated budget, a fabricated body count, and a real eclipse date bolted to the front. Snopes traced the originating account and found it had previously published fictional first-person stories, claiming variously to have worked at Google, at a morgue, at a crematorium, and as both a psychiatrist and a criminologist, with the textual fingerprints of a machine that writes stories on request Its very next video after the gravity claim was an invented account of 600 people vanishing from a town in Alaska. Then the account disappeared, and the story kept going without it. The claim does name a cause, and the cause is the most revealing sentence in the whole thing. The intersection of two gravitational waves from black holes, predicted in 2019 with a probability of 94.7%, known to NASA for 5 years. Gravitational waves are real. They are ripples in space-time itself, and detecting one required building the most precise measuring instrument in human history. The Laser Interferometer. Gravitational Wave Observatory measures a change in length of about 1 part in 10 to the 21st power. Across arms 4 kilometers long, that is a movement of roughly 1,000th of the width of a single proton. The first confirmed detection, on the 14th of September 2015, came from two black holes merging more than 1 billion light-years away, and the announcement in February of 2016 was followed by the 2017 Nobel Prize in Physics for Rainer Weiss, Barry Barish, and Kip Thorne. Now take the 3 failures in that one sentence. Gravitational waves are that weak. A passing wave does not lift a person. It changes a 4-kilometer laser beam by less than the width of an atom's nucleus. They travel at the speed of light, and the signal encodes only the final seconds of a collision, which means they cannot be forecast years in advance any more than you can forecast a thunderclap you have not heard yet. And NASA does not detect them at all. That work belongs to the LIGO, Virgo, and CAGRA collaboration. The claim invokes the most sensitive measurement humanity has ever made, and gets its strength wrong by roughly 20 orders of magnitude. Now the honest part, something genuine does happen to Earth's gravitational environment tomorrow. It is just the opposite of what was advertised. The Moon reached perigee, its closest point to Earth in this orbit, on the 10th of August at 12:15 Universal Time. The eclipse falls about 2.2 days later, which is exactly why the Moon's disk is wide enough to cover the Sun completely, with 4% to spare. And a solar eclipse is, by definition, a new moon. Sun, Moon, and Earth strung out on one line. Astronomers call that syzygy. When those 3 bodies line up, the Sun's tidal pull and the Moon's tidal pull stop partially cancelling and start adding together. Combine that with perigee, and you get a perigean spring tide, the strongest tidal configuration the Earth-Moon-Sun system can produce. Tomorrow is, in tidal terms, a local maximum. So how big is the strongest gravitational configuration available to us? The Moon's tide-raising acceleration at Earth's surface is about 1.1 times 10 to the -7th of Earth's own gravity. 1 10,000,000th. NOAA gives the same figure another way, roughly 1 9,000,000th part of the force holding you down. The Sun's tidal contribution is less than half the Moon's. Stack every planet in the solar system on top of that, in a perfect line, and you add a fraction of a fraction more. If you weigh 80 kilograms, the entire Moon, at its closest, in perfect alignment with the Sun, is pulling on you with the equivalent of about 8 milligrams. A grain of salt. That is the anomaly. It is real, it is calculable. Centuries in advance, and it points in the wrong direction. Very slightly more stretching, not less weight. There is a place on Earth where tomorrow will not feel like arithmetic. Latrabjarg is a cliff at the westernmost point of Europe, on the ragged edge of Iceland's Westfjords. The road to it is narrow enough that Icelandic authorities have spent part of this year repairing it, and have discussed closing it to private cars entirely, because of what happens there tomorrow afternoon. If you could stand on that cliff, this is what you would get. For an hour, almost nothing. The light thins the way it does before a storm, though the sky is clear. Then, in the last minute, the change accelerates in a way no photograph prepares you for. The temperature drops. Colours go wrong, greens turn metallic, the sea goes the colour of lead. Seabirds along the cliff face, tens of thousands of them, begin to settle as if evening has arrived 4 hours early. Then the moon's shadow comes over the water from the west, and the sun closes. You get 2 minutes and 18 seconds. Just offshore, 45 kilometers out, at 65 degrees 10 minutes north, 25 degrees 12 minutes west, is the point of greatest duration on Earth, and even there it is 2 minutes and 18.2 seconds. Around the black disk, the corona, the sun's outer atmosphere, 1,000,000 degrees hot, visible to your naked eye for the only time in your life that it ever will be. Iceland has not seen this since the 30th of June, 1954. It will not see it again until 2196. And during those 2 minutes and 18 seconds, your weight will not change by any amount you could detect with any instrument you could carry. Here is the thing the rumour stumbled toward and then ruined. Gravity is not a constant. It is a field, and it flexes, and we watch it flex. Start with the simplest case. Earth is not a sphere. It bulges at the equator and flattens at the poles, and it spins. The result is that your weight changes by about 0.5% depending on where you stand. You are measurably lighter in Quito than in Reykjavik, not by an amount you would feel, but by an amount any laboratory scale would report without complaint. Then it gets stranger. Beneath the Indian Ocean lies the largest gravitational deficit on the planet, a region where the pull is weak enough that the sea surface sits as much as 106 meters below the global average. A hole in the ocean, 340 feet lower than it should be, held there by nothing but a shortfall of mass somewhere far below. It was mapped in detail using data from NASA's Gravity Recovery and Climate Experiment, and it appears to have formed around 20 million years ago. Hudson Bay has its own deficit. For decades, the explanation was the Laurentide ice sheet, 3 kilometers of ice that sat on Canada through the last glaciation and pressed the crust down. Then the gravity satellites measured it properly, and the ice sheet accounted for only 25 to 45% of the anomaly. The other 55 to 75% appears to come from convection in the mantle, dragging the continental plate downward and pulling mass away from beneath eastern Canada. We know these numbers because of 2 satellites flying in formation, about 220 kilometers apart, measuring the distance between themselves to within a few millionths of a meter. When the leading satellite passes over a mass concentration, it speeds up first. The gap changes. From that gap, month after month since 2002, we have watched groundwater drain from aquifers and the planet's gravitational field change shape in near real time. Gravity is not going to switch off tomorrow, but it is not the flat, dead number in the textbook either. It moves. We just measure it in millionths, not in 7-second catastrophes. Which leaves the strangest part of all of this, and it belongs to the real sky. Tomorrow, 4 things arrive on the same calendar date. The total solar eclipse, running east to west out of northern Siberia across the Arctic, just missing the North Pole, then down across eastern Greenland, western Iceland, the North Atlantic, northern Spain, and the far northeastern corner of Portugal. Totality over A Coruña, Bilbao, Zaragoza, Valencia, and Palma. Madrid and Barcelona miss it. Jess Lee, an astronomer at the Royal Observatory Greenwich, notes that Britain's last total eclipse was in 1999. Its next is in 2090, and the next partial eclipse this deep will not arrive until 2081. The new moon, Mayanons, which is not a separate event at all. A solar eclipse is a new moon. Listing them apart double counts the same alignment. But it matters because it means the sky that night is as black as August gets. The Perseids, peaking the night of the 12th into the 13th, the debris trail of comet Swift Tuttle, burning overhead at rates cited as high as 100 an hour. Lee again, they are known for bright meteors and occasional fireballs. With no moon at all to wash them out, you see the stream closer to what it actually is. A new moon will not fall on the 12th of August again until 2045. And before dawn, 6 planets strung across the morning sky, Saturn and Neptune first, then Uranus and Mars, then Mercury and Jupiter low in the east, 4 of them naked eye. It is a line of sight, not a physical alignment. They are hundreds of millions of kilometers apart, and they are not pulling on anything. Then the finding. IFL Science went through 5,000 years of eclipse computations against the 5 most productive annual showers, and could not find a single instance of a total solar eclipse falling on the peak date of a major shower. In 1999, the eclipse was on the 11th and the Perseids peaked on the 12th. In 1692, the eclipse was on the 12th and the Perseids peaked on the 10th and 11th. Near misses, both. Because consistent meteor rate measurements only begin in the 1950s, the claim is bounded by our records rather than by the sky itself. That is the honest caveat. But as far as the scientific record goes, tomorrow is the first time. The next chance at this coincidence is the 8th of June, 2290. Gravity will not switch off tomorrow because gravity is not something the Earth does. It is something the Earth is. But the field it makes is not the flat number you were handed in school. It sags beneath the Indian Ocean by more than 100 meters of missing sea. It is thinner over Hudson Bay because something in the mantle is still pulling Canada down. It changes as the aquifers empty. And it reaches a genuine maximum tomorrow, at 1/10,000,000th of the strength it would need to lift a grain of salt off a table. That is the reversal. The rumour was not wrong to sense that gravity is stranger than we say. It was wrong about everything else. The size, the direction, the mechanism, the clock, the agency, the physicist who never existed. And while 40 million imaginary people fall out of the sky tomorrow afternoon, the moon's shadow will cross a cliff in Iceland. The corona will stand open for 2 minutes and 18 seconds. And after dark, the debris of a comet will burn against the first genuinely black sky the Perseids have had in years. On a date that, as far as anyone has been able to check across 5,000 years of calculation, has never happened before. I think that is the thing worth being frightened of. Not that the universe will drop us, that we invented a catastrophe loud enough to talk over the only day like it in recorded history. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.